our nation's capital when it comes to Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland, and she's also the Finance Minister. Well, she has met with U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen today in Toronto, and essentially the two of them have acknowledged that consumers are going through a very hard time when it comes to inflation at an all-time high. It is actually higher in the United States than in Canada. In Canada, it's 6.8%, and that is very high. It's going to go to the 7% mark, according to analysts, for the month of May, when the numbers are in. And essentially, it's made everything very unaffordable when it comes to cost of basic things such as food, clothing, shelter, gas, everything you can name. It's become much harder for Canadians to survive, and it's a global phenomenon right now, and it's become an affordability crisis. And the two countries say that they're going to work together to combat price pressures that consumers are dealing with when it comes to supply chains and interruptions that have occurred due to COVID and multiple other reasons, such as the war that continues between Russia and Ukraine. This is what the two of them have discussed in detail, and they both acknowledge that the war in Ukraine has led to severe disruptions in the energy market, which has made gas so much more expensive at the pumps. In Canada now, it's becoming common to pay anywhere around $2 a liter or over $2 a liter for gas. Both the two leaders are essentially talking about what they can do to ensure that the economy runs smoothly, as there are talks of a potential recession around the corner. Both Freeland and Yellen, they both emphasize the role of the central bank. That's important in terms of managing inflation, but they also acknowledge that government has a part to play when it comes to keeping debt and deficits down. This is something that Chrystia Freeland has said about the role of respecting the Bank of Canada, but it also comes down to, as finance minister, when she has to table a budget for Canadian spending on a federal level, well, she's taken into consideration of what that means when it comes to fiscal policy. Now, she's put out a statement as well. I'm going to go to a quick video for you to see the two leaders in discussion when they met.
Are challenging for a lot of Canadians, Canadian families right now. But I am so bullish on Canada, on Toronto. And I do also really want to acknowledge Joe being here today. And thank you very much, Joe. Because maybe one of the reasons I get along so well with Secretary Yellen is I agree with her about work and jobs. And for me, when the COVID recession hit, the worst number was that 3 million Canadians lost their jobs. And now, as we're coming out of that, the best number is we've recovered 117% of those lost jobs. And some of the jobs I care about the most, Joe, are the ones of your members. And I really believe that right now we're in a time of building. Mayor Tory knows that Toronto, since 2015, has had more cranes than any other city in North America. That is fantastic, and we just need to keep on going.
Well, let me just say very quickly, it's a pleasure for me to be in Toronto. This is certainly not my first visit to Canada by a long shot, but my first as Treasury Secretary, and it's a great pleasure. The Deputy Prime Minister and I have gotten to know one another very well now. Over the last year and a half, we meet often at international gatherings, and we quickly learned that we share many things in common in terms of our values, our focus on, which is, I think, to economic policy issues. So thanks for the hospitality of welcoming us here, and we look forward to very fruitful conversations.
Thank you, and you gave me a great lead-in to my first question for both.
Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland said that the federal government has moved to shrink spending, and that was part of the focus when she tabled the budget in April. And she says that with the rate of fiscal consolidation, this is what has only can decide to match the U.S. and other G7 nations. She has decided that to be able to afford, to be able to maintain the affordability measures in place for the budget that she tabled. She said that instead of introducing new inflation rises, new spending when it comes to deal with inflation rises, they decide to avoid further inflation stimulus. This is now something that was said for the budget that was tabled in April. But as of last week, Chrystia Freeland announced her affordability plan with almost $9 billion of spending just in 2022. And this is something that economists have said will make it worse when it comes to the central bank trying to be able to tame inflation by increasing interest rates. And the next interest rate is due to increase next month in July, and there are multiple more scheduled dates for the end of the year, but that is to be seen what that means. Now, according to the Federal Reserve Bank of San Francisco, here's a stat that I want to bring out here, is that the stimulus payments that the United States paid out to its citizens, well, essentially, when they looked at it, it actually contributed about adding 3% to the U.S. inflation rate by the end of 2021. And of course, the prices have been climbing and the rate has been climbing up since then. So the stimulus payment that was sent out in Canada as well as the United States and other countries during 2020 and 2021 due to COVID, as lockdowns and mandates were set in place and working from home, or certain places actually closed down, the stimulus checks went out. Well, the Federal Reserve Bank of San Francisco is saying that those stimulus checks contribute to 3% of the U.S. inflation rate. So it's very significant to know that. Now, according to Statistics Canada, they reported the inflation rate for April rose to 6.8% compared to within a year ago. It is the highest since January 1991, but it is in comparison lower to Britain, Germany, and the United States.